Love him or loathe him, the name Donald J. Trump is etched into the fabric of American history. We've seen him command rallies, dominate headlines, and shape global politics. We know the politician. We know the public figure. But who is the man when the cameras stop rolling? When the teleprompters are turned off? What drives the individual behind the iconic image? For the next while, we're going to set aside the political battles and the partisan noise. We're going on a journey to explore the unexpected habits, the personal routines, and the private world of one of the most public figures on the planet. This is the story of Donald Trump, the man. It all starts before the sun comes up. While Washington sleeps, the engine room of the Trump operation is already humming. His day begins not with a politician's briefing book, but with a media consumption ritual that has become the stuff of legend. By 5:30 in the morning, he is digesting a curated stack of newspapers with a well-known affinity for the New York Post. But the real action is on television. For years, his day was fueled by cable news, which often acted as an informal sounding board, setting the tone for the day's messages. This habit is more than just staying informed. It's a direct line to the pulse of his base and his critics. He doesn't just watch the news, he engages with it, reacts to it in real time. And what fuels this early morning intensity? Not a green smoothie or a balanced breakfast, but a combination that has baffled nutritionists and fascinated the public for decades: Diet Coke and fast food. His preference for well-done steak with ketchup, McDonald's, and Burger King is perhaps the most famous dietary habit of any modern president. It's a conscious choice, one he's openly defended. In his view, it's about control and consistency, a shield against the unpredictability of outside food. In a world of potential threats, a sealed, brand-name meal is safe. It's a quirk that strangely resonates with a part of America that feels overlooked by coastal elites. The billionaire with the taste buds of every man, and the constant companion, Diet Coke. A button on the Oval Office desk could summon one at a moment's notice. It's more than a beverage. It's a fixture of his routine, a symbol of a very specific, very unwavering personal culture. Contrary to the image of a structured bureaucratic leader, Trump's work style has often been described as fluid. He is a night owl, known for making late-night phone calls and operating on a schedule that is less about rigid time blocks and more about energy and opportunity. Political analysts have called it chaos by design, a way to keep aides, adversaries, and the media off balance. But for Trump, it may simply be the natural rhythm of a man who built his career as a deal-maker, not a bureaucrat, a world where the best opportunities don't always happen between 9 and 5. This unstructured approach drove some staffers crazy, but for him, it was the secret to maintaining the energy and aggression that defined his public persona. So we have the early riser, the cable news devotee, the fast food aficionado. But this is only the beginning. What happens when he steps away from the desk? Where does he go to recharge, to think, and to socialize? The answers reveal a side of the man that is, in many ways, just as compelling as his public persona. But if the desk and the diet form the fuel of the Trump phenomenon, then there is one place that serves as its true sanctuary and its ultimate stage: the golf course. For Donald Trump, golf is far more than a pastime. It's a parallel universe where business, politics, and personal identity fuse into one. It's where he goes to both escape the spotlight and to command it completely. The green is his open-air office, his social club, and his fortress of solitude, all rolled into one. His connection to the game is deep and personal. He doesn't just play golf. He owns some of the most prestigious courses in the world. These are not merely investments. They are reflections of his brand, manicured, luxurious, and bearing his name in gold. A round of golf with Donald Trump is a unique experience, a blend of intense competition and relentless negotiation. It's where relationships are built, alliances are tested, and deals are sketched out on the back of a scorecard. The golf cart becomes a mobile situation room, the fairway a corridor of power. But beyond the business, the game reveals a core aspect of his character, a relentless, almost obsessive drive to win. Stories of his relationship with the sport's rules are the stuff of Washington lore, often described as creative. This isn't just about scoring a lower number. It's about the perception of victory, the unwavering projection of success. In many ways, the golf course is a perfect metaphor for his entire worldview. A vast, sprawling landscape where you keep score, you attack the hole, and you never ever admit defeat. Yet, this sanctuary also functions as his town square. It's at his properties, like Bedminster in New Jersey or Mar-a-Lago in Florida, where we see the other side of the man, the patriarch, and the host. These are the stages for his family life. Away from the political fray, we see him with his children, who are not just family members, but senior advisors, their lives inextricably linked to the family enterprise. It's a dynamic that has fascinated observers for decades, a tight-knit circle where loyalty is the ultimate currency. So we see a man whose life is a carefully, if unconventionally, managed ecosystem. The pre-dawn news binge fuels the public commentary. The fast food diet maintains a stubborn consistency. The golf course provides both escape and influence, and the private clubs offer a stage for both family and power. But this ecosystem requires one more crucial element to function: an audience. And that relationship with the public, how he communicates, how he commands a crowd, is perhaps the most defining element of all. For Donald Trump, the relationship with his audience is not a political strategy. It is the very core of his identity. It's a direct, unfiltered, and powerful channel that bypasses traditional gatekeepers and speaks straight to the crowd. This bond was forged in the most modern of town squares, social media. Long before his political ascent, he understood the power of a personal brand. But on platforms like Twitter, he found something else: a megaphone. His tweets were never polished press releases. They were raw, immediate, and deeply personal. They could set the day's news agenda, attack critics, praise allies, or simply share a thought. This wasn't just communication, it was performance art. It created a sense of intimacy, making his supporters feel like they were insiders, part of a movement that was thumbing its nose at the political establishment. When he was suspended from major platforms, it wasn't seen as a silencing by his base, but as validation proof that the establishment was afraid of his voice. But the digital bond is only half the story. The true manifestation of this connection is physical. It's the rally. To understand Donald Trump, you must understand the Trump rally. It's more than a political speech. It's a cultural event. It has its own rituals, its own soundtrack, its own energy. The warm-up acts, the anticipation, the sheer scale it's designed to be an experience. And then he takes the stage. The speeches are famously freewheeling, often stretching for well over an hour. They can zigzag from policy to personal grievance, from comic impressions to solemn promises. This lack of a rigid script is not a bug. It's a feature. It reinforces the authenticity his supporters crave. It's not a politician reading words written by a committee. It's a man speaking his mind. In these rallies, we see a master reader of a room. He plays the crowd like an instrument, building to crescendos, allowing for call and response. The chants of USA or 4 more years are not just slogans, they are the soundtrack of a shared identity. For the people in those arenas, it's not just about hearing a candidate, it's about being part of a tribe, a community that feels seen and heard for the first time in a long time. The rally is a sanctuary of shared belief. So, we have the private man with his strict, simple routines, we have the deal maker on the golf course, and we have the performer who commands the stage. These are not separate people. They are facets of a single, remarkably consistent identity. The discipline of his personal habits fuels the energy for the chaotic public performances. The deal-making skills honed over decades inform his political negotiations. It's a closed loop. A self-reinforcing system. In the end, whether you admire him or not, the picture that emerges is not of a politician who learned to be a celebrity, but of a celebrity who fundamentally rewrote the rules of politics in his own image. Beyond the rallies, beyond the tweets, exists a more subtle and enduring architecture, the construction of the public persona itself. Long before the political run, Donald Trump was a master architect of his own image. This wasn't an accidental celebrity. It was a carefully crafted project, decades in the making. To understand the man, we must look at the blueprint. The foundation was laid in the 1980s with the publication of The Art of the Deal. The book wasn't just a business memoir. It was a manifesto. It introduced the country to a character, the brash, brilliant, and relentless New York dealmaker. It established a vocabulary of success, thinking big, using leverage, fighting back, that would become central to his political language years later. The book created a mythos, a larger-than-life figure that captivated the public imagination. This narrative was then amplified by a new genre of television, reality TV. The Apprentice didn't just make him a household name. It burnished the myth. Every week, millions of Americans invited him into their living rooms as the ultimate arbiter of success and failure. The catchphrase, "You're fired," wasn't just a dismissal. It was a performance of power and decisiveness. On television, he wasn't just a businessman. He was a character who embodied a certain kind of authority, unemotional, results-driven, and supremely confident. This televised persona became the most potent weapon in his arsenal, a prepackaged image of leadership that politics had never seen before. But the persona is more than just bravado. It's protected by a fascinating psychological armor. Observers have often noted his apparent immunity to conventional criticism. Attacks that would cripple a typical politician seem to glance off. This isn't a lack of awareness, it's a strategic defiance. The response to any accusation or scandal is rarely an apology. It's a counterpunch, an attack on the attacker. This creates a perpetual motion machine of conflict, where the narrative is always about the fight, never about the wound. It's a strategy that keeps his supporters engaged in a shared battle and his opponents perpetually off balance. And this entire construct, the dealmaker, the TV star, the defiant warrior, is encapsulated in a single powerful word: Trump. The name is the brand. It's on towers, it's on products, it's on golf courses. In politics, it became a shorthand for an entire ideology. The brand is the ultimate expression of his identity, a promise of a certain kind of success and a certain kind of strength. It's a persona that is incredibly flexible, capable of absorbing shocks and adapting, all while maintaining its core message. So, we see that the man is also a master storyteller. The story he tells is about himself, and he has been telling it, refining it, and selling it for over 40 years. The political chapter was simply the culmination of this long project. It's a story that resonates deeply with a segment of the population that feels the American dream is under threat. He doesn't just promise policies, he promises a restoration of a feeling of strength, of success, of winning. And that promise is perhaps the most powerful deal he has ever made. If the public persona is a carefully crafted fortress, then the drawbridge is controlled by a very select few, his family. To understand the ecosystem of Donald Trump, one must understand the unique and unparalleled role his children have played, not as distant relatives, but as central pillars of his business and political identity. This is not a traditional political dynasty. It is a first family conglomerate. The concept of loyalty is paramount in Trump's world, and nowhere is that bond stronger than with his inner circle of adult children. During his presidency, we didn't just see a first lady and a first son. We saw senior advisors with the last name Trump occupying some of the most influential positions in the White House. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner became household names in Washington, not as mere relatives, but as powerful deputies navigating everything from Middle East peace deals to economic policy. This blurred the lines between family and government in a way that was unprecedented in modern American history. But this dynamic began long before the White House. The Trump children were raised in the spotlight, their lives intertwined with the family brand. They were fixtures in his boardrooms and on his television show, learning the art of the deal and the power of the name from a young age. What appears to the outside world as nepotism is, from the inside, a deeply ingrained system of trust. In a world he often describes as full of enemies and leakers, family represents the ultimate safe harbor, a circle of confidants whose interests are, by definition, aligned with his own. This family-first structure extends to the campaign trail. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump are not just surrogate speakers. They are powerful amplifiers of his message, often delivering a more pugilistic and unfiltered version of the populist creed. They connect with segments of the base on a visceral level, embodying the same combative spirit. Their presence reinforces a key narrative, that the Trumps are a team, a united front against the world. However, this arrangement has also been a source of intense scrutiny and criticism. The intertwining of vast business interests with the highest levels of government raised continuous ethical questions. For his supporters, it was a sign that he trusted only those closest to him to get things done. For his critics, it was a dangerous erosion of the barrier between public service and private gain. Ultimately, the family is more than just an inner circle. They are the keepers of the flame. They are living extensions of the brand and the persona. Their unwavering public support provides a human shield against attacks and a symbol of unwavering unity. In the story of Donald Trump, the family is not a subplot. It is a central thread, woven into the very fabric of his identity, his business, and his political project. They are the ultimate testament to his belief that blood, above all else, is the thickest bond of all. Beyond the immediate headlines and the day-to-day controversies, the story of any significant figure is ultimately measured by the lasting imprint they leave on the landscape. The chapter on Donald Trump's legacy is still being written, but its broad contours are already fundamentally altering the mechanics and tone of American politics. One of the most undeniable impacts lies in the realm of communication. The traditional press conference, with its prepared statements and filtered questions, was often bypassed in favor of a direct-to-the-people approach. The presidential tweet became a primary tool of policy announcement, political combat, and agenda setting. This shift forced media organizations, political opponents, and world leaders to adapt to a new, unpredictable rhythm. The very definition of presidential communication was rewritten, placing a premium on immediacy and visceral impact over deliberation and protocol. This change in communication was mirrored by a shift in political strategy. Groups that felt their concerns were overlooked by both political parties. The Trump campaign's focus on issues like immigration, trade, and national sovereignty resonated deeply in these communities. This realignment has forced a prolonged and ongoing reassessment within both major parties about who they represent and how they can win elections. The electoral map itself, with its focus on the Midwest and the Sun Belt, was redrawn around these new political battle lines. On the world stage, the America First philosophy represented a significant departure from decades of bipartisan foreign policy consensus. Skepticism toward multinational agreements and international institutions like NATO and the World Trade Organization became a central tenet of his administration. This approach was celebrated by supporters as a necessary assertion of national interest and criticized by allies and detractors as a retreat from global leadership. The long-term effects of this recalibration of America's role in the world continue to unfold, influencing diplomatic and economic relationships to this day. Perhaps the most profound legacy, however, is one of political tone. The politics of personal confrontation, the willingness to challenge the legitimacy of institutions from the courts to the intelligence community to the electoral process itself became normalized. This adversarial style created a level of partisan polarization that many analysts believe has deepened the cultural and political divides in the country. The debate over his legacy is, in itself, a reflection of those divisions, with one side seeing a necessary disruptor, and the other a fundamental threat to democratic norms. Therefore, to examine the Trump phenomenon is to examine more than one man. It is to analyze a period of intense disruption and transformation. The questions raised during this era about media, about globalization, about the very nature of leadership, remain at the forefront of the American political conversation. The legacy is not a settled matter, but an active and powerful force, continuing to shape the direction of the nation. As we bring our exploration to a close, we're left not with a simple conclusion, but with the recognition of a truly unfinished story. The narrative of Donald J. Trump is one that remains actively contested, passionately debated, and continuously evolving. He is less a settled historical figure and more a pervasive force, a defining character in a pivotal chapter of American life that is still being written. The themes we've examined, the media mastery, the economic populism, the foreign policy upheaval, the cultural battles are not relics of the past. They have become central pillars of the ongoing political conversation. The political movement he galvanized continues to exert tremendous influence on the direction of the nation, ensuring that the ideas he championed will be argued over, legislated upon, and voted on for years to come. The question is no longer whether he changed the political landscape, but how enduring those changes will prove to be. History's judgment, as it always does, will take time. It will be shaped by the scholars, the journalists, and most importantly, by the American people through their choices in the voting booth. The final assessment will weigh economic records against social divisions, diplomatic recalibrations against institutional trust. It will be a complex calculus with no single easy answer. Ultimately, the story of Donald Trump is inextricably linked to the story of modern America itself. Its anxieties, its aspirations, and its deep-seated divisions. To understand him is to grapple with the powerful currents that have shaped the 21st century thus far. His presidency was not an aberration from the American story, but a profound and dramatic expression of it. Whether viewed as a disruptor who shattered a corrupt system or a polarizing figure who strained its foundations, his impact is undeniable. The chapter he authored is bold, controversial, and far from over. The legacy of the 45th president remains a living, breathing part of the American experiment, its ultimate meaning still waiting to be decided.